Hello and welcome back to part 3 of Betting People with Michael Holding. Now, we've talked an awful lot about Michael's experiences within racing, but of course, he is known primarily for being a brilliant cricketer and, of course, a brilliant commentator for Sky. So, we're going to talk about his cricketing career in this part. And firstly, actually, because it's not a question I've heard you answer much, but how did you actually get into cricket? Obviously, being in Jamaica and being in the Caribbean, it's a very integral part of the culture there. But can you remember sort of the first time you played or your first experiences? How did you end up getting, into your local team?
Well, I played all the sports that were available to me as a kid. When I was at school or when I was just with my friends, we would play different sports at different times of the year because those days sports actually had seasons. You played cricket during the summer, you'd play football in the so-called winter, obviously no winter in the Caribbean. And different times you did different things. And I just played them because they were available there to be played. As time went on, I was exposed more to cricket than anything else because I was a member of a cricket club from I was a kid. From I was born, my father registered me at the club, and that club, although it was a football and a cricket club, eventually started doing and playing only cricket. The football sort of just stick by the wayside. And with the exposure at the club and playing more and more cricket, that aspect developed a lot more than anything else. Not that I could have done anything else to the levels at which I do or did play cricket, but because I was exposed more to cricket than anything else. And I played my first official cricket match where you had an umpire and you wore your whites and that sort of a thing at about age 10. It was for the community in which I lived. We used to have what was called the Rankin Cup in Jamaica as a kid, that communities and workplaces played in that competition. And my community had a team, and that was where I played my first ever match as a 10-year-old. You know, the guys in the area went up to my mother and asked her if I could go and play, if I could play in this game. And of course, at age 10, you have no cricket gear as such. And my sister had to rush off to the shopping center to try and get me a pair of white pants, and I played in this white pants and a white t-shirt in that very first game. So it was just a matter of growing up as a kid and playing up the sports available and, being selected to play in this game because the guys thought I could play a little bit of cricket.
Indeed, and as they say, the rest is history. Speaking of history, you were part of the great West Indies team that won Test series pretty much here, there, and everywhere. Um, but your first tour in England was sort of particularly famous and particularly, some would say, notorious in some areas. When Tony Greig, who was the captain at that time, made the famous grovel comments, just give us an insight into the reaction amongst you and also the rest of your teammates then, because many people say, and I don't disagree with them, that it added an extra edge to the series, that it added an extra element of fire to your and your teammates' play.
Yes, it did. Yeah, not everyone heard that comment live. I actually did because 1976 and in those early days when teams toured England, the touring team did not play cricket on a Sunday. And the only cricket played in England on a Sunday those days was, I think it was called a John Player League, a 40, or I think it might have been a 40 over tournament.
Mm.
And it started in the afternoon because, those days the thought was you go in the church in the morning, and then you get a short game of cricket after lunch on Sundays. And we, in the hotels, didn't have television sets in our rooms. Again, we're going back to the 70s. People won't even remember these things, but you didn't have television sets in your room. So if you wanted to watch the telly, you had to go down into the lobby where there was a television set. But at the same time, more times than not, whatever you wanted to watch would have been on the screen because you only had three channels in those days: BBC One, BBC Two, and ITV. So there was cricket on one of the BBC stations, and of course the cameras went down to Sussex where they were filming that game and did an interview with Tony Greig, the England captain. And I remember him saying it clearly about, the West Indies being very good, but when they're on top, they are brilliant, and when they're down, they tend to grovel. And he and um, Brian Close and a few others intend to make us rubble. Now, the few of us who heard it live made sure that everybody else in the team knew about it. And then, of course, in the team meeting, we discussed what he was saying. And of course, with him being South African, because he was a South African playing for England, and with the apartheid regime in power in South Africa, we didn't take kindly to the word grovel in particular. And we decided, okay, that's what he thinks of us. We're going to let them know exactly what groveling is all about. And we pretty much, most of the team thought it was a racist comment to be saying what he said and the way he said it. Many years afterwards, I didn't know Tony Greig. Many years afterwards, I got to know Tony Greig very well. Spent a lot of time with him working on television and in other avenues. And I got to realize that Tony Greig was not what we thought of as someone that was racist, making a racist comment. I did not find him racist in the least. And he just made a comment at the wrong time and used the wrong words. But that spurred us on a great deal. And every time he came to bat, the fast bowlers would find a bit more energy, irrespective of what time of the day it was, and would bowl a little bit quicker. And the batsmen that batted with him didn't enjoy it either.
No, not at all. Indeed, plenty of batsmen from that era, including I think it was Dennis Army, have have recalled that. Another very famous moment from your career, the Tour of New Zealand, one where I think, to say the least, the umpires may have stolen the show. And of course, you remember the famous kicking the stumps incident.
Yeah.
Just two questions, I guess, to ask that. Number one, I know with the benefit of hindsight, do you think at that point in your career or in the heat of the moment, you could have seen yourself doing that same thing again? And secondly, do you actually regret it?
Well, number one, you can't say that if you went back to that moment that you wouldn't do it again. It's just a spur of the moment reaction. As you said, in the heat of the battle, you react and you do something that should not have taken place on a cricket field. You can't condone that sort of behavior on a cricket field. But I couldn't say to you now, 40 odd years later, that if I went back 40 years in the past and it happened, that I wouldn't do it again, because it's not something that you plan to do. You would hope that you would learn from experiences, and I learned from that experience that it never happened again. That wasn't the only time that I thought umpires were being a little bit partial. But you hope you learn from experiences and you don't repeat your mistakes. So that experience was a horrid experience for me and for the team that I played in. And I don't think anyone can say that they saw anything like that from either myself or any members of my team after that one experience. Also, whether you ask if I would regret it, again, that is not something that I can answer and say, yes, I regret it, because I think an incident like that and other incidents that took place on the cricket field has influenced the ICC to now have the independent panel of umpires, which I think is the best thing that has ever happened to the game of cricket. An independent panel of umpires where you go to a country and you can think to yourself, and again, think, because perception sometimes is greater than reality. You can think to yourself that you're getting a fair shake. The DRS has helped in that regard as well. But before the independent panel of umpires, a home umpire making a genuine mistake, you'd automatically think this man is cheating. Automatically, whether it was genuine mistake or he was deliberately being biased, you automatically, as a visiting team, you think he's cheating. With the independent panel of umpires, that has gone through the window. You get rid of that immediately. So I think the incident with myself, with my yachting in Pakistan, with Sunil Gavaskar, and with Muralidharan in Australia, all those things combined help to put pressure on the body responsible for the game to have this independent panel of umpires. And I think, as I said, that's the best thing that has ever happened.
Fascinating insights, and I'm sure we all thank you for them. Just out of interest, moving forward a bit from your playing career, you've seen many different eras of cricket, and one of the things I particularly interested in getting from you is who do you think is the best batsman you've enjoyed watching since you started broadcasting with Sky?
I wouldn't be able to pick one. I've seen so many great batsmen since I started doing my broadcast on Sky. I start off with overseas batsmen first of all before I get to my home batsmen. When Sachin Tendulkar was playing, I used to enjoy watching Sachin Tendulkar bat. I think he was a master batsman. More recently, from the same country, Rahul Dravid after that, and then more recently now Virat Kohli. I enjoy watching those people bat. In my broadcast days, I have been able to see Kane Williamson, who is in my opinion, is a fantastic player. I've seen South African AB de Villiers, again, highly skillful. From England recently, Joe Root. There are so many batsmen, different parts of the world that I've enjoyed watching. So I wouldn't be able to pick one. These guys, you can admire their skill, you can admire their craftsmanship. To then differentiate them to pick one would be quite difficult. If I now think about home cricketers, Brian Lara, his skill is just out of this world. I have never seen a better batsman against spin bowling, never. And I'm not just talking about broadcast days, I'm talking about in my playing days. I just haven't seen a better batsman against spin bowling.
And I mean, a brilliant selection there of wonderful batsmen. You're a fast bowler, tremendous one, bowled a lot of pace. We've been blessed, I think, for all the eras of cricketing history to have tremendous pace bowlers. I'm sure you'll give me more than one answer, but who is the? Let's say that you were getting your pads on. Who is the fast bowler you would have least like to face? And let's actually say from all of your time in cricket.
No, I could give you 100 of them. I couldn't bat, so I could give you 100 of them, but I wouldn't want to bat again. But just watching fast bowlers, over the last say 20 years, Dale Steyn. I think he is the best fast bowler I've seen in the modern era. If you start going back, it's difficult to compare eras, but you start going back many years, you're going to start talking about people like Dennis Lilly and Andy Roberts from the Caribbean, Malcolm Marshall, Richard Hadley. I wouldn't want to compare them, but just in their eras, they were great fast bowlers. But Dale Steyn in the modern era, it's difficult for me to find someone that I would say has been better than him.
I think it's an answer plenty of people would agree with. Personally, Dale Steyn also a massive favourite of mine from that wonderful era of the South African bowling attack with him, Philander, and of course, Wally Morkel. We're coming to the end of this, and it's been a brilliant interview, and I want to thank you for having taken the time out. But the state of we talked a lot about cricket, and you've talked a lot about not only cricket in the past, but cricket potentially in the future. We've been lucky enough, and we are lucky enough as we speak, to have cricket played now. Do you think the game will basically adapt and survive to the continuing pressures on it? You've had, even I think before COVID, plenty of structural changes. Can you see international cricketing boards and teams making it through this period, looking forward into the future, maybe 5 years down the line?
Yeah, I think 5 years is a short period of time. I don't think you'll see a lot of changes in 5 years. 5 years is a short period of time, but I would suggest that whatever changes that are needed for the game to survive will be made. At the moment they're facing COVID, which is very, very difficult. You have to be playing in the bubbles. I even now still here in South Africa saying that their current tours coming up when England go down there, even at Christmas, they'll be having to play in a bubble. So you have to just adjust at the moment. People will be happy for the time being to be able to watch it on their television sets. People are missing the atmosphere of being at the ground. But like any other thing, we have to have some patience. We have to make whatever adjustments are necessary. And then hopefully we can go back to close to being normal in the not too distant future. Not enough is known about COVID. Not enough is known about this virus that's going around now for people to predict anything. We have the greatest scientists in the world working on this thing, and the story keeps on changing. So I wouldn't think anyone will be able to predict anything about the future, the immediate future at any rate. But we just have to be doing the most sensible things, do what seems to work, and hope that things get better. And I'm sure cricket will be able to make the necessary adjustments to survive through this and will blossom afterwards.
A wonderful note upon which to end this very special Betting People. Thank you so much for your time, Michael Holding.
My pleasure.